Britain is an island nation, historically wary of mainland Europe. So when the United Kingdom joined the then European Economic Community in 1973, it was immediately a divisive issue. In fact, it took just 2 years to trigger the first referendum to separate.
I'm sorry, had great support for the idea of Britain in Europe.
Britons voted to stay, but scepticism toward the ever more integrated European Union never went away. In the late 90s, the UK opted out of the new euro currency. 5 years later, the EU added 10 mainly Eastern European members, triggering a big jump in EU migration to the UK. Popularity of the anti-Europe UK Independence Party rose along with it. That dynamic eventually forced the hand of Prime Minister David Cameron. 6 years ago, Cameron made a speech here where he pledged to renegotiate the UK's relationship with the EU. He said he'd put that new deal to the people and they could decide to stay in the EU or leave.
I think it was going to have to happen at some point, but I think it was certainly called primarily for reasons of party management, and obviously he was under huge political pressure from within his party and from outside the party to call that referendum.
Big thank you. June the 23rd, there's another 12 weeks to go.
Cameron campaigned for the UK to remain, but a large number of his troops drove the other way, with immigration at the centre of the bitter debate.
Let June the 23rd go down in our history as our Independence Day!
Leave won with 52% of the vote. The problem was no one, including the outgoing Prime Minister David Cameron, had defined what Brexit meant.
Brexit means Brexit, and we're going to make a success of it.
It would be 6 months before Cameron's successor, Theresa May, finally set out her vision of Brexit.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
What she did was she defined Brexit as what we now think of as a relatively hard Brexit. And that was what Eurosceptics in her party want. And she basically gave them their kind of wildest dreams. And then they've held her to that. And that's caused her huge problems.
Speaking here at Lancaster House, she detailed her 12 goals for Brexit. The problem was 3 of those so-called red lines conflicted with each other, and those undeliverable goals would come back to haunt her. First of all, May said she wanted the UK to leave the EU customs union and go out and make its own trade deals with the world. Secondly, she wanted to keep the Irish border, or the UK's future EU border, open. And thirdly, she wanted to keep Northern Ireland fully aligned with the rest of the UK. 2 of those might be doable, but not all 3. Having promised so much, May knew it would be difficult to get the support of Parliament, so she called a surprise election, taking advantage of strong polling numbers. The gamble went spectacularly wrong.
As we look ahead and we wait to see what the final results will be, I know that, as I say, the country needs a period of stability.
May lost her majority and had to rely on a party with its own agenda, the pro-British Democratic Unionist Party from Northern Ireland.
What price for DUP support?
It did really box her in, because there was this real sense that the DUP were tough negotiators and that they would be very, very happy to pull the plug on the government if the government crossed their red lines on the union.
On the other side, Europe had 2 non-negotiable goals: keep the Irish border open to maintain peace in Northern Ireland and protect the integrity of the EU customs zone. Last November, after much deliberation and amid cabinet resignations, Theresa May signed the divorce deal with the EU. It contained the so-called backstop clause, which meant that all of the UK or just Northern Ireland might have to stay inside the EU customs zone just to keep that border open.
Division!
The deal needed MPs' approval, but they repeatedly rejected it for a variety of reasons.
The noes to the left, 432.
The EU told May, tough, you've signed it, there is no other deal. A perfect storm of circumstance that set up these interminable months of division. Redmond Shannon, Global News, London.